Welcome to 490 Devotionals. If you're new to the channel, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Dale, and I'll be your host here on 490 Devotionals. Basically, what we're going to be doing today is this is going to be a practice run for what I'm going to be teaching this coming Sunday. I figured we could go ahead and start making videos on it, upload it, and then just share the message with any of you that want to join us online. So again, thanks for joining us online, and I truly appreciate it. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to guard your heart. And if you watched last week's video, I told you, hey, we're going to start a mini-series, and we're going to be talking about how to guard your heart and help us be better Christians so that we can go to heaven. The more in-depth that I got to studying how to guard your heart, I felt like it was really important for us to know what we were up against. So that's really what we're going to be about today. We're going to start out with what are we up against on guarding our heart and things. More specifically, a question that I seen on Facebook recently was, can the devil read your mind? So let's get to the video. Again, like I mentioned recently, I was on Facebook and I watched a video about a young man, and he had basically done a short video. And for you guys that don't watch a lot of the videos, typically what they're calling a shorts now is anything under a minute long. And essentially, when the video popped up, I thought to myself, well, of course the devil can read your mind. I mean, that is silly. It doesn't even make any sense why somebody would even be asking that. And then the more that he talked about it, I realized, you know what, this young man may have, he's got some valid points. And ultimately, he said, the devil can't read your mind, and we're going to dive into that today. Today we're going to do a deep dive into that and explain to you some of my thoughts, what the Bible says, and then my opinion of how the devil gets us. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start out with 2 Timothy 4, verse 5, and I'll be reading out of the English Standard Version. I encourage you to go to your Bible and follow along. Make sure that I'm not making a mistake. If you watched last week's video, one of the key goals of all of this is, number one, I don't want to cause anybody to stumble, and then number two, I want us all to go to heaven. So with you following along, you're just going to help me keep, in case I make a mistake, you guys will be able to help keep me in line, because I'm fallible, I'm human, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect. Jesus was, I'm not. So again, 2 Timothy 4 Verse 5, English Standard Version. As for you, always be sober-minded, endure suffering, do the work of an evangelist to fulfill your ministry. Okay, and this is more in particular directly related to my church lesson that I'm going to be teaching, because I want to talk with them a little bit about using our Facebook page as a way that we can open doors to other people here in our small town in East Texas. And I'm going to ask them to start sharing stuff on Facebook. If we post these videos live every Sunday, we've got the preacher's video, our video, and I just think it's a way that, and if you guys are watching this video and you're a member of a church already and you guys have a Facebook page or a YouTube channel, something like that, guys, seriously think about sharing those messages with people that in your community that you know could actually benefit from it. And you never know, you may be inviting your next new member to church. It's real simple, just share the post on Facebook. So I want to talk to my church about that. I thought I'd share it with you guys as well, and that's kind of the verse that I'm using, is do the work of an evangelist to fulfill your ministry. And that's just kind of a call to action that I'm going to be talking to our folks with Sunday. Again, feel free to do that with your church as well. All right, so back to the question, can the devil read your mind? The answer may surprise you. It did me. Back to the Facebook, this young man who does Bible studies asked the question, can the devil read your mind? And I thought to myself, well, of course he can. I need to do some more research on this. Because in the back of my mind, I'm always remembering when, and of course it could stem from the cartoons we watched when I was younger, but you'd have the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, and both of them are kind of whispering in your ear, and it just kind of made you feel like if he couldn't read your mind, he was maybe filling your mind with clouded thoughts or something to that effect, which makes me believe that he could have. But we're doing a deep dive into this. How many of you have ever heard that the devil can fill your mind with thoughts and clouded thoughts and fears, etc.? And that's essentially what I just said, talking about if he can't read your mind, maybe he's filling your mind with clouded thoughts. You know the ones I'm talking about. You're not good enough. You can't do that. You can't even talk in front of large crowds. You don't know enough on that topic to even speak about it. And then you can fill in the blank with whatever you need to fill in the blank with here, and you know what I'm talking about. I don't think anybody's immune from this particular deal where maybe we've got a good idea that we want to try to do for the church, and then we're like, man, I don't know that I'm the one. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not a Bible scholar, I'm not a theologian, but I'm up here teaching class. You want to know why? Because they came and asked me if I would do it, and I said absolutely, I'd be honored. What do we know about the devil? Number one, we know he was a fallen angel, right? The Bible talks about he was a fallen angel. Would you say that he has a supernatural mind since he is a fallen angel? And when I say supernatural mind, he was at one time an angel. I'm just telling you, he's been to heaven, was in heaven. He knows God, was one of God's favorites, one of God's favorite angels. He's got a lot more knowledge, especially on the spiritual side of the world, than we do, for definite. How long has the devil been around on earth? I think we could adjust that number and just say, instead of blurting out a number that somebody's going to say, absolutely not, that's ridiculous, it's not that, it's this. Let's just say this. We can safely say that we know that the devil's been here since Adam and Eve were in the garden, correct? Because the devil tempted Eve in the garden, and he was disguised as a serpent, correct? So he's been here a long time. And the more I thought about this, whether he can read our mind or not, because I couldn't find anything biblical that says yes or no, I thought about this. And that is, the root of this problem is easily defeated by other scriptures in the Bible. And we're going to get more into that here in a minute. And that goes back to guarding our hearts. Jesus warned us about guarding our hearts, because out of our hearts, words are spoken out loud. Let's look at Colossians 3, verses 5 and 6. Part of this chapter is talking about putting on a new self. And again, just to make it a little easier to read, if you watched last week's video or you was in class last week, you know that we were speaking a lot or teaching a lot out of the King James Version. This particular 5 and 6, very difficult for me to read. I'm not a super strong reader, so we're just going to go ahead and go straight with the American Standard Version. And it is, again, Colossians 3, verses 5 and 6. Verse 5, put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you, sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Verse 6, on account of these, the wrath of God is coming. So what are we learning here? We need to, as you become baptized, and essentially that's what we're talking about here, after you've been baptized and you become a Christian, and you're put to death, therefore, what was earthly in you before you were a Christian, essentially. Put to death all these things. Leave them behind you. You know, there's a saying about grabbing your rearview mirror and throwing it out of your vehicle because you're not going that way. And essentially that's what we're being warned about right here. Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. And he names off several things. On account of these things, the wrath of God is coming. And again, our goal is to go to heaven, right? We're going to go, it's the same chapter, so Colossians 3, we're going to jump down to verses 8 through 10, and again, I'll be reading this out of the King James Version. But now you also put off these anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communications out of your mouth. This is King James Version. Verse 9, lie not one to another, seeing that ye have put off the old man with his deeds. Verse 10, and have put on the new man. Basically, you've become a Christian, so you're putting to death the old guy, and here's your new self, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. And this is very, very important, because we're talking about leaving our old life before we was Christians and being a new life and striving to be more Christ-like in the best of our abilities. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. Nobody's ever going to be perfect, and nobody expects you to, but there's an expectation for us to try to do better. This last verse we read reminds me of a song that we used to sing, and sometimes still do sing, but I specifically have a vivid memory of singing it with the youth group when I was a kid growing up, and the song is "I have decided to follow Jesus." I've decided to follow Jesus, no turning back. Take your rearview mirror off, throw it out. We're not headed that way. Put the old self behind you. We're trying to strive to be better Christians. To make this a little simpler for me to understand, let's look at the English Standard Version, and again, we're going to be reading the same verses. But now you must put them all away, anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and ye have put on the new self with its being renewed in knowledge after the image of the Creator. Where is the knowledge that we're getting at, guys? Where's this knowledge coming from? Does it just come into your body when you get baptized? No? Where's it coming from? If you were saying the Bible, you're spot on, because that's where we're going to get it from. All right, now we're going to go back to the devil and when he tempted Jesus, okay? Matthew 4, verses 1 through 11. Jesus is tempted by the devil, and I'm sorry I have to read a lot of this stuff. I can't memorize everything, but memory work is something we should be working on. I just can't remember everything, and I don't want to mislead anybody. Matthew 4, 1 through 11. Jesus is tempted by the devil. Then was Jesus led up to the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. Verse 2. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungried. Verse 3. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be Son of God, command these stones to be made bread. Verse 4. But he answered and said, It is written. Okay, this is all in red, so we know Jesus is speaking. And it also says, But he answered Jesus and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Verse 5, Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city, and setteth him on a pinnacle of the temple. Verse 6, And saith unto him, If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Verse 7, Jesus said unto him, again it's in red, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Verse 8, And the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto them, All these things I will give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Verse 10, And then saith Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship thy Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Let's stop right here for a second. And we're going to read this in the English Standard Version. Verse 10, we're going to reread it. Then Jesus said to them, Begone, Satan, for it is written, You shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. Is that not awesome? Is that not awesome? Can we tell the devil to leave? Can we tell the devil to leave us alone? Think about that. Put your comment down below. Let me know what you think. Verse 11, Then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. I've got a couple of questions about this, and the first one that I want to ask you as a class, as a group, as you joining us here online, if the devil could read Jesus' mind or heart, why would he even waste his time on the temptations? Put your comment down below, let me know what you think. Why do you think he even bothered to tempt Jesus? Because clearly, if he could read his mind, he knew Jesus wasn't going to make that mistake. Is it one of those deals where he's like, I just got to do it anyways, that's what I do, that's my job here now, I'm trying to convert people to follow me instead of God and Jesus? Let me know your thoughts. The next thing I want to ask you is, wouldn't the devil know where Jesus' heart, soul, and mind was if he could read his mind? What do you think? I'm going to go and say this. I don't believe that he could. I can't find anything in the scriptures that says that he can, but I found in scriptures where Jesus could, and we know that God being omniscient, he can. And God being omnipresent, I believe is the correct word, because he's everywhere all the time and knows everything. So, I can't find that about the devil, but I can fall in love with this. I love how Jesus said, "Be gone, Satan." The mouth speaks what the heart is full of. A tree is known by its fruits, and by what fruits it puts off. And you notice when I said fruits, I'm using an S there, because this is part of my theory on how the devil gets us. Let's go to Matthew 12, verses 33 through 40, and please follow along. Matthew 12, 33 through 40. Either make the tree good and its fruits good, or make the tree corrupt and its fruits corrupt. You notice we're talking about a tree, and then the fruits are plural with an S on it. Verse 34, O generation of vipers, with an S on it, how can ye bring evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. Let's stop right here. And I've got this in bold on purpose, because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. Okay? Hang on to that. We're going to come back to that here in a little bit. Verse 35, a good man out of the good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. Verse 36, but I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. I've got that written in red in bold again, and let's reread that. That every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give an account, therefore, in the day of judgment. What is Jesus talking about right here in these 4 verses? Yeah, we could definitely do an entire lesson on that. I agree with you. Verse 37, for by the words thou shalt be justified, and by the words thou shalt be condemned. We're going to come back to that, okay? For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. A good man brings good things out, and the good stored up in him, and an evil man brings out evil things that are stored up in him. We know that God can read our mind. We talked about that a minute ago, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to some verses that actually, so you can say, wow, he just made that up. And we know that God knows all things. Let's look at 1 John 3, verse 20. Verse 20, for if our heart condemn us, God is greater than our heart and knoweth all things. So right there we know that God knows everything. It says so. He can see all things from heaven. Psalms 33, verses 13 through 15. The Lord looketh from heaven, he beholdeth all the sons of men. Verse 14. Let's stop there for a second. Did you hear what I said? The Lord looketh from heaven, he beholdeth all the sons of men. We'll come back to that. Verse 14. From the place of his habitation, he looketh upon all the inhabitants of the earth. Verse 15. He fashioned their hearts alike. He considereth all their works. Basically, this is just reaffirming what we've talked about. Jesus knows all, or God knows all things, sees all things, hears all things. He's also made us with free will and choice, and it's up to us to decide. In my research, again, I had a theory last Sunday. Peggy blew that out of the water. So again, in my research, some of this now is my personal opinion, and it's not necessarily going to be coming directly out of the Bible, but it's something for you to think about, and I'd love to hear your comments as well. But since I can't find where it says the devil can or can't read our minds, the one thing I'm not going to do by even muddying the waters is asking, does the devil need permission from God to tempt us? That may be a whole nother lesson that we end up doing down the road. If that's something that interests you, comment down below and let us know. But I think we can agree on this. God is all-knowing and is all-present. He knows our heart. And even in the Bible, when Jesus is reiterating some of the questions, he talks about, let's just use the word adultery for a second. Jesus is talking about adultery, and he said, I'm going to take it a step further. If you even look at a woman with lust in your heart, you've committed adultery. So he can read your mind. We got verses that we could go through. If we need to do that, comment down below and we'll add them to this. We can put them in the notes or whatever. But I'm going to tell you a real quick story, and it's kind of fun. I used to have this Rottweiler. His name was Titan. Titan was very, very good about picking out the bad guys. So if you were at home and you was watching a murder mystery or some type of show like that, and you were to wonder, who's the bad guy? Titan's going to tell you straight up. I mean, when the bad guy walks on set, Titan would stand up, he'd growl, and he'd start walking to the TV. We used to have a big wooden door on the front door, and then we had the glass door. Titan would lay there, and he'd watch. We lived in town. There was lots of people always walking around. But if he stood up and started growling, I'm telling you, you need to pay attention to whoever's walking by right then, because he knew that person was untrustworthy, up to no good. Use whatever word you want, but he's letting you know this ain't normal. I mean, Rottweilers are lazy, okay? If he stood up to growl, it meant something to him. And you should take note. That's what you have the Rottweiler for to begin with. All right, next up. Can you read body language? I know a lot of people feel like they can, and let's just do a little role playing right now. You comment down below and let me know. You guys get what I'm going here. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying, because I'm trying to tie all this together. And no, I wasn't in drama when I was in kid in school growing up. That wasn't one of the classes I took. But what I'm getting at, my dog was very good at picking up on body language. You guys have just guessed some body language of mine. And I want to just kind of reiterate something that I've learned in years past. What does it take to become a master at something here in the United States? As a general rule, there's a time frame, and I'm specifically looking for a number in hours. Okay? If you guys have come up with it, great. I'm going to tell you there's a couple of different answers, so it's kind of a broad spectrum depending on which reference you're using or pulling it from. But the original guy who wrote a book that I could find, he said roughly 10,000 hours at any particular practice. Let's just use Taekwondo or something like that. You could become a master at that craft, practice, art, whatever, with 10,000 hours. Other scholars are now saying 15 to 20,000 hours. They're doubling down. If you ever watch a really good dog trainer, I'm going to tell you straight up, he uses hand signals. And if he doesn't use hand signals, he uses other things besides verbal cues. And a lot of times it's going to be a hand signal, especially if you watch any of the guys who train cattle dogs or bird dogs and they're pointing. I know my lab, I had her trained if we were duck hunting and there was ducks that needed to be retrieved. She knew to look to me before she ever jumped out of the boat. Which one are we going for, Pops? And she would go to whichever one I pointed to. And dogs do listen. A good trained dog follows the body language, if you will, from his handler. Watch your military channels, watch your military dogs, especially the highly trained ones, and you're going to see that that dog spends a great deal of time looking at his handler, looking for the next clue, and I promise you most of the time they're not verbal. The reason that I'm bringing all this up is I want you to think about it, because again, if we go back to the very beginning of what we kind of titled this class is, what are we up against as Christians and how do we guard our heart? I think it's important to know who we're battling against. And we've all decided that the devil's been here. We decided to take the number of years out and just say he's been here since Adam and Eve. So he's been here a long time. Clearly it's way more than 10,000 hours. Clearly it's way more than 15 to 20,000 hours. Clearly he's a master at reading body language. Right? Can he read your mind? I can't find anything that says he can. But he can read your body language better than my dog. Better than my dog could pick out the body language of the people walking down the street. If my dog can pick out a guy whose mind is nefarious, do you not think the devil can see that a mile away? I mean, come on. He's been here since Adam and Eve. And here's my theory on the devil. Again, I can't say whether he can read your mind or not, but what I can tell you is we know that out of our heart, we speak, right? Jesus warns us about this. He tells you to guard your heart, guard what you're saying. Our body language will also be something that the devil could pick up on. He knows where your mind's at as you're walking down the street, just like my dog did. I'll say this, I believe what we speak gives the devil the ammo he needs to come to us with temptations. I don't think he's reading our minds. I think we're freely giving him this stuff. I think our body language, the things that we put off, we're freely giving him this stuff. Again, we know he's a fallen angel, potentially has a supernatural mind. And if a dog can pick up on nefarious actions, you guys can pick up on my body language. And we've got references of stories. I guarantee you've probably heard a story from work where somebody was picking up on somebody's body language and like, this guy's up to no good, or especially if you work retail and you're like, keep an eye on that guy because I think he's fixing to shoplift. I mean, people pick up on that stuff. I think the devil can too. And if we're not careful, the ammo that we give the devil is going to turn into links. Did you notice how I changed those words? Again, you're going to see more of that coming next week. Again, this is my theory on whether or not the devil can read your mind. I know we give him ammo. I know we give him the things he needs to make links for us. And if the links has your curiosity up any at all, be sure to tune in next week as we go deeper into how to guard your heart. I hope this lesson's been helpful for each and every one of you, and I hope that you all have a blessed week. May God bless each and every one of you and your family. And until next week, video comes out. If you haven't seen last week's video, check that one out. Love to talk you into watching it. If you find any of this interesting or helpful, share it with your friends. help us all work together to bring others to Christ. Again, may God bless you and have a blessed week. And let's go study the Bible.